Yeah.
The Economic Development Committee met for the first time on Thursday evening. Met at Raven Hill. It was more of an icebreaker kind of a meeting. Everybody had the opportunity to introduce themselves, just share kind of what they thought the Economic Development Committee should be about, and elected a chair and secretary. And we're going to start meeting on the second and fourth Thursday of every month here at Town Hall from 4:30 to 6. We'll be meeting this Thursday, and then we'll start the second and fourth. But it was a very good meeting, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of great ideas, definitely a committee of people that are doers. So I think it's going to be a great committee.
Good.
Just in the whole business realm, I just got to say that on a hot day on Saturday, I dropped in next door for some ice cream, and the place was packed. So I think, people have found...
Cowabunga?
Yeah, have found Cowabunga. It's, and I think it's going to probably be a thriving business this summer.
Good.
All right, anything else from the board? Committee reports? Anything that we did go over the first pass of the solid waste ordinance last night at a special committee meeting, and I think we're gaining on that, so needs some work. But new business, committee appointments.
Okay.
I will do these all in one fell swoop.
Okay.
I make a motion to appoint Don Holman as our dam controller. He's been doing it for a number of years.
Dam controller, not the...
Dam controller.
Dam controller.
Okay.
Jim Carl to the cemetery committee. Pam LaRue is the EMA director. And Willis Lord is our Echo Maine director.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Make sure you raise your hands high, because we have no one taking minutes tonight.
That's
so
right.
They're gonna take them off from the tape. All right, discuss vote 199 Secaucus Seafood and Steak liquor license renewal.
I move that we renew the 199 Secaucus liquor license.
Second.
Open up for discussion. Do we have any record of complaints? Not that I know of. There was nothing in the folder. We do have the inspection
Patty and
results
Mike.
from Patty and Mike. Anything else? All those in favor of approving extension of the annual opposed? That's, all right. Discuss the vote to sign payment arrangement forms. We have several here tonight that have been proposed as tax payment, well, partial tax payments. Comments or motions, or what's your pleasure?
Okay, this one, it's $200 a month. That is, that would be paid off in six months or so. Another one is it'll be 4 years.
Yeah, one is probably questionable, but that being said, I think we've at least moved forward with in the past, but the thing that isn't here tonight, and I think it's because both Pam and Nancy are out, is we asked for a kind of a background of
Right.
all of that stuff, so.
Maybe something we need to have on a future agenda is creating a policy for dealing with these. We've been getting a lot of them lately, and I think we're going to continue to see them,
Yeah.
so that every single one is being treated the same way, and it's fair across the board.
Yeah, we had discussed last week about having some type of a workshop on this.
Yeah.
I think we need to do it sooner rather than later, because this
Yeah.
is the fourth week in a row that we've seen these types of requests.
Yeah, I think when I look at these and I say, okay, you've got 4 years of taxes that the schedule for repayment will will repay it in a year, that makes a lot of sense. But you have someone that has 4 years of payments, and 4 years from now, it's still not going to be paid, plus you'll have another 4 years accrued on top of that. Then I have some questions about how effective it's going to be. So those are the types of things I think we need to have a workshop on, how the payback period.
What's your desire with these?
There's two of, the one that's the they're going to do
Yep.
4 years.
Yep.
I'd like to set that one aside. The other
Yep.
two, I think, are reasonable requests,
Yeah.
and I would motion that we accept those agreements.
The first and the third?
Yep.
Yes, I
So
second
the
that.
first one being map 16, lot 70A1. Second being map 055, lot 14.
Yep.
Yes.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Just
And
table
we'll
the other
table.
one.
So why don't you make a motion to table?
I make a motion that we table for more information.
I'll second that.
Okay. No discussion on the table. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Article, or item 4 in the new business, discuss, vote, send a letter in regards to the sex offender legislation being proposed. Evan had brought this up because this kind of got some spool up. There has been, just so everybody knows, kind of the background here, there's been legislation proposed, and I think it was sponsored by Representative Ann Haskell out of Portland, to prohibit any municipality from creating an ordinance regarding residency restrictions for sex offenders. We are one of 7 communities?
7 or 10?
7 to 10 communities that have a sex offender residency ordinance.
10.
10.
10,
Yep.
yeah. They did have a public hearing already. Our representative, Joe Wagner, I think everybody has a copy of his testimony, or letter of testimony, relative to the fact that he represents 2 out of the 10 towns, Waterboro and Lyman. So I think the question is does this board want to take some form of action with regards to a letter to this committee? And I guess that's what's up for discussion.
This is a complex issue. For one thing, there's sex offenders. You could have a sex offender that I was reading about in the paper. A kid comes home from the Army, he's 18 years old, he has a relationship with a 15-year-old. He becomes a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. And in Waterboro, he could not live he could not live next to close to a school, and that is a concern of mine. Now, when we set this ordinance, we had a person here that tried to kill a person that he abused. The person probably shouldn't have been out of prison. And we had a real concern about this person living close to a school. And therefore, the ordinance came forward. And I think the ordinance has its place here. However, I can see from developing the concern from the state level is you have someone that is not a real threat to society, that has some severe limitations as to where they can live and where they can work. Then it becomes, I think, overly restrictive. So from my perspective, I would like to see a little bit more of this. I'd like to protect our own ordinance here, but at the same time, I can see the concern.
There's 2 issues here. Now, and I think you just touched on both of them, but I see them as separate. right? Number one, the state, if there are issues, as you talk, about where one sex offender versus, or one offense that becomes egregious and is a threat, okay, we'll say forever, versus, so I think the state has to make some, if they want to,
They need to
I guess
better
if they want
classify.
to deal with the sex offender state laws, then deal with the definition in the we'll say a tier step level of, this kind of things. Our ordinance talks to the state law. If they're identified as such, then we're saying you can't live within 1,000 feet of a daycare center or 2,500 feet from a school or whatever the case may be, right? So we feed off from the state law that says this is the definition, all right? Maybe the definition needs some work, and I think that's to your point.
Yeah, I think, and I'm seeing what you're saying here, is that, and that therefore, in a way, I would speak against this law passing unless sex offender is redefined, and maybe there's levels of sex offender. There's violent. There's the sex offender that does not seem to propose a problem in the future. It may have been a young person, one-time thing, and somehow the state needs to differentiate here. And then we can, with that in our ordinance, we can say, okay, sex offenders 2, this applies to; sex offenders 1, it does not.
And I agree with the direction that John's going with this. An example that I know of, a case that I know of, person he has to register as a sex offender because he had relations with a girl that was underage. He's now married to her. They have 2 children. They've been married for a number of years, and life is good and happy, but he has to register as a sex offender. So if he was to live in our community, there's certain areas that he can't live, even though he's happily married to the victim. But there are other cases, like with the Tellier case, he clearly did not belong where he was residing. The state needs to look at the way that they're classifying sex offenders. So if we're going to do a letter to the state that says, this is our ordinance and we stand by our ordinance, I think that letter needs to include, but we feel that you need to look at how you're classifying offenders.
I agree.
Yep.
Yep.
And I guess that would be my, approach to this, is that, hey, don't
Don't throw it all
restrict
out.
a municipality from local home rule.
Right.
All right? And if you have issues with how this sorts out, go fix the issues. Because they have the power to do that at a state legislative level, right? And I thought Representative Wagner's letter was certainly spot on from where he was coming from.
So maybe a letter that we agree with Representative's letter and state that we stand by our ordinance and that we are concerned with the definition of sex offender, and that the state should work in that area.
I would agree.
I would move that have Nancy or a designee write that letter and bring it back to the board next Tuesday for.
I'll second that.
Okay. So you want to have Nancy take the lead with one of us, I guess, as we sort through it?
I think, and Evan might have already even kind of drafted something.
sure.
He was the one that teed
Yep.
this up on the agenda.
So all those in favor of moving in that direction, we'll bring it back next week. Opposed? Okay. Dig out my agenda here again. All right, discuss vote on budget to be presented to Finance Committee. I think deep down in your folder here, you'll find what we discussed at the meeting the other night. I guess what I would like to propose is that we deal with the revenue, as we discussed, and then we can quickly go through the departments, and with the understanding that this, as we discussed last week, this is to move it to the Finance Committee level, doesn't nail it down to a warrant, doesn't, those kind of things. We'll let the finance committee go through their issues, meet, reconvene with them, and then we will have a subsequent vote, which we will identify what will be on the warrant. Okay?
After a public
Yeah.
hearing.
That's right.
So, well, I think we, yeah, John, I think we just need to sort out the public hearing. It's typically after we have the warrant established, right? So, that being said, I think when...
John and I are,
Yeah, I mean,
Looking at
I
each
think,
other.
I think that's pretty irritating to people going to a public hearing to see it's fait accompli, and what are we doing here? I think, in a way, what I'd like to do is see it just comes up maybe a week before the final vote of the Board of Selectmen to put it on the warrant. But this is the warrant as it stands right now, it's public hearing, and there can be a change.
Yep.
Well, that's how it is.
Well, we're talking
But the
about
change-
having the public
Public
hearing
hearing.
after we'd voted on it.
Well, that's fine. I
warrant.
mean, we can
I think the
certainly,
public hearing ought to come before
we
we
can
vote.
certainly do that. I don't have any objection to that. I think ultimately it's the selectmen's decision of what the warrant looks like as it's presented to the public at town meeting, so. That being said, what we're talking about is a total revenue stream, and I'll try to go through the specifics here, all right? The bottom line number is $3,465,650, and that would be derived from $1,411,287 from taxation, $336,345 from department revenues, $980,000 from excise tax, $150,000 for miscellaneous fees, including the cable TV franchise, $2,500 from transfer from the cemetery fund, zero surplus, $138,000 even from a transfer from the transfer station capital funding account, $175,000 from the rescue billing fees, $75,000, which is expected from the state URIP road grant, $60,000 from the rescue billing fund. Oh, I'll take that back, $24,068 from that fund, not 60. $94,000 from the rescue equipment fund, which would go towards the capital leases, and $79,312 from the ambulance subscription fund. And that money would be, we won't get into the, what fund funds what department at this point. But the bottom line is $3,465,650, which is, just for anybody that is keeping track, $541,027 below what the budget's requested as a flat funding, with there's some increases in the flat funding for insurances and those kind of things. So net, it's about $470-some-odd-thousand less than what was raised last year at town meeting, which would be a flat funded, from a tax rate perspective, flat funded for this year. So, I guess my suggestion is that we deal with that, move that as the revenue stream to the Finance Committee as a number. So if someone would want to make that motion.
I will make the motion that the number that you gave here, that we set that forward to the Finance Committee. That is the $3,465,650.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, that's what they're target of revenues is, right? Not sure how quite to go through this without flipping around all kinds of papers, but if I look at general government, which takes in a whole myriad of stuff on page 1 of our sheet here, down to including, I don't know if she has it summed up. I guess it through, up to and not including general assistance. The number that we had struck was $533,100. That was down from last year's approved number of $538, so basically about $5,000 less. General assistance at $72,000. Town clerk, $49,816. Tax collector, $41,251. Treasurer, $37,238. Office workers, and these numbers all include Medicaid and FICA, insurance, and those kind of things. 160,000. That's all. I'm sorry. That's all the insurances. 160,858. Municipal buildings, 59,000 flat. Tax assessor's office, 67,116. Code enforcement office, 62,870. I guess that is that plus fee. No, the fees are included in that now, right?
Yeah.
No zoning map revisions this year. The next category is the library at 66,653. Parks and Recreation at 167,258, which includes the fees. Planning Board at 26,048, which includes the fees. Well, the fees are included in that number. Public Safety, 467,852. Ross Connor is still separate at 6,634. I thought you were going to include that in your budget there, Matt, this year.
They never give us anything.
Oh. Hydrant rental, 21,000. I'm not sure that, do we have anything from the Water District that says that's what it is? Public Safety EMS, 64,400. Engine 1, this is all the capital stuff, right? Engine 1, scuba, ladder, tanker, truck, squad, ambulance 1, defibs, and ambulance 2, $123,950. Transfer station, stump dump, and refuge area, $587,000 and $587,017. Public Works Department, which includes all the Fred's work and whatnot, plus the snow plowing contracts. I'll take that back, it doesn't include the snow plowing contracts that we pulled out separately. Was $359,150. We added $120,000 additional, which was Chadman Ridge Road and additional ditching, one for 60, so there's $120,000 for upgrade of roads, so you get $359,150 plus the $120,000. The contract for the snow plowing and sanding and the sidewalks is $256,100. All the miscellaneous stuff, which includes the contract deputy, the cable franchise stuff, land trust, Taylor House, Memorial Day Recycling Committee, all of that above. All the agencies that we would raise money for as well, and that was,
It's not totaled.
yeah, that's
It is
not
an
total, it's
individual
separately,
total
but
for each.
the bottom line number is $3,465,650 of expenditures. So with that makeup of expenditures and that makeup of revenues, the budget balances, revenues and expenditures, and that does not include county tax, and it does not include, well, actually, SAT 57. And there's, I think we've all heard of what their talk is, of that they're looking at a 3.5% or somewhere in that neighborhood. So, we talked at the workshop about if we add something, you gotta add the revenue. And I'm not sure whether you want to move forward with those recommendations now or run this to the Finance Committee and then go from there.
I'd like to make the recommendations now.
Okay?
And I'm going to recommend that we take 35,295 out of surplus and add it back into the roads additional ditching project. The reason that I feel strongly about this project is that we've neglected our roads for a number of years. Our biggest problem that we have with roads is definitely a water issue. And the only way we're going to stop some of these water issues is to ditch the roads properly. Yes, there is 60,000 in there, and there's also 20,000 in Fred's budget. But as the Road Review Committee went out, did the RSMS project this year and looked at what we needed, this is what they came up with a total, bringing it out for the next 2 years. In the long run, if we don't get the water away from our roads, we're not going to be looking at just resurfacing roads. We're going to be looking at reconstructing roads, which is going to be 4 to 5 times greater than what it's going to cost us to resurface. I understand that financially this year, we're in a very tough spot. We don't know what next year is going to bring. If the excise tax law passes, we might be looking at a tighter budget next year than what we were looking at this year. And I feel that we're going to either pay now or we're going to pay a lot more later. And I think that paying now is more prudent, and it saves the taxpayers in the long run from having to reconstruct roads.
That's a motion?
That's
Second?
Was there any discussion in around that?
Yeah, well, I would,
Go ahead, John.
I would say that Tammy made a great point, and it was made also by the Road Review Committee, who did a great job in getting all this information. What I see is $80,000 in ditching, which is a lot more than we've done in the past. And we're at $80,000 if we've reduced the $30,000 out of the original 90 that was requested by the road review, and as it stands right now at 60. We put that $30,000 back in, and it goes into surplus. It takes out of surplus, which we now are zero at. So what, in a sense, we're doing is deficit spending. Now, there's a possibility that as the year goes on, we may actually find some surplus money. And if we do, I would suggest that we'd go back to a special town meeting and put that into increased ditching, because it is a good it is a good investment to get the work done now in the next couple of years. However, we're doing it with deficit spending. I don't like that. So I really think that there's a possibility we could do this if we have some extra money that is unaccounted for that shows up in the next 5 or 6 months. The other problem is that that you mentioned, Tammy, that if we do lose excise tax, then we're gonna be sorry that we put any money into ditching, because then we're gonna have to take out all that money, that about $200,000 out in the last half of this year, and we will have already spent this on ditching. So I think that the prudent thing to do now is this summer to spend the $60,000 on ditching. And the extra $20,000 that Fred has, do it this summer. Hold back on the other $30,000 And if we can find it, if we can find the money, then have it put in special town meeting and have it done in the spring.
When the road review committee looked at coming up with that $95,000, they recognized that Fred was going to be putting $20,000 into his budget. But Fred needs that for some of the maintenance of some of the ditching that we already had. We had a heavy winter, the sand, Fred, correct me if I'm wrong here, all of that's going to have to be removed. So the $20,000 that Fred put in was just kind of, the upkeep of what is ditched.
Yep.
So the 95 was looking above and beyond at what Fred had put in his budget.
Yeah. And where I'm saying is, let's go above and beyond with $60,000, hold the $30,000 back and see how see what happens over the next 6 months. And then if we are fortunate enough to have a surplus, we can do it in the spring. If we're not fortunate enough to have a surplus, then we're going to be borrowing that $30,000 plus more money from the bank in order to make payroll, in order to pay the school next spring. So rather than borrowing it from the bank and doing into deficit spending, I'd say the $60,000 is a good start. And you spread it over 3 years rather than trying to do it all in 2 years.
This vote tonight isn't really binding anyway. We will be sending it to the Finance Committee. I'd like to send it to the Finance Committee with the $30,000 in there at this point. And we do have, I've seconded your long motion.
All right. Anything else? Here's my view, all right? It would be nice to give $30,000 back to Matt. It would be nice to give $30,000 back to some of all of those other areas where we took $400 and some odd thousand out to get to where we are. I think there's a couple of things coming with regard to roads. We're waiting on reimbursement from FEMA, all right? I think we may or may not know that going into town meeting, but certainly we'll know that soon after the new year starts. That money comes back purely as surplus road money, all right? Goes back into the general fund. But to John's point, I don't think there's any reason that we can't then say it's prudent, we've got the reimbursement, because we spent that money this year, which we didn't plan on during the ice storm, right? And so that money's out of this year's budget, was spent, done. So I think that there are a whole host of opportunities where we could put, bring some money out of surplus and stick it back into some accounts, but I'm not sure that when you weigh that out, that this is the opportunity to do that. So my put is that we don't present that extra money to the Finance Committee. Certainly that's on the table for them to discuss, okay? Because they might come back and say, you guys are crazy. We think that, we ought to put some things on LD1 override and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure that the Finance Committee will do that, but they certainly have the wherewithal to make those recommendations. So that's where I'm coming from. Fred,
How much did you strip?
this is not a debate, but I'll let you.
How much did you strip out of the pavement? How much money did you take away from pavement?
A fair amount. And again, that was, let me tell you pretty quickly.
Requested was 110, and we've reduced it down to 65.
Nothing, that was 65.
No, but then again, we had money this year, and we spent $25,000-$30,000 more than what we'd anticipated.
The thing with it is, you want to remember, if you're going to cut back on that pavement, you better keep up on the ditching.
Yeah, well, I think
Exactly.
it's all a bit,
In a few years, and I go along with Cindy said here a week or two ago, about getting a bond, because that's the only way you're going to keep these roads up and keep them paved.
And I-
You'll
and I-
never do it to raising money right
and
now.
I think that we're going to have to cross that bridge, okay?
Oh, we will.
With how do we, especially certainly if we continue to where we're going today, certainly if the economy doesn't turn around next year, I'm not sure that any of us are going to be sitting here saying, gee, let's cut another $400,000 out, okay? Out of it, just to put it in perspective, it's a $10 million budget. When you throw the schools, the county tax, and everything into it, it's $10 million. Pretty simple math. take $470,000 out, that's almost 5% of our spend, and it's all coming out of the municipal services side. None of it's coming out of the side of education or county tax, all right? All coming out of municipal services.
What you're actually doing is, another way of looking at it, out of